Shalom, family, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's Yom Rishon discussion. And I pray that you are all blessed wherever you may be. I know that I am right here, right now. I'm so grateful for every one of you, and thank you for your coming online here with us and joining with us. I see some of you joining us, wow, from all over the earth. We've even got some folks joining us from New Zealand. Always blessed to see our brethren, and I see brethren from all over the United States, all over the earth here. It's always a blessing to see each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining us. I pray that you all can hear me okay. We've had some, oh, never mind. Alan says I'm 5x5. We're good to go. We're good to go. And normally, if you join us on Yom Rishon, first day of the week is called Yom Rishon. And if you normally join us on this day, then you find us having a chat with my brother, Jerael Tomah. And if you haven't been over there yet, get on over to the Truther's Journal. It is always a blessing, and you'll find some great information and great content that will encourage you. And so I'm sure he'll be back with me very soon. But tonight is a special broadcast because we're going to be talking about what we discussed on Shabbat, which was husbands love your wives. And so I couldn't think of anyone else better to join me than my lovely wife and my best friend and the love of my life, who is my sidekick through many adventures, my wife, Mindy. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so sweet. Shalom, everyone.
All right. So we've been actually looking forward to this. We chuckle and laugh pretty much all day. Just as we get to go through this experience together. Isn't that true, babe? Oh, your camera dripped you all the way down. I don't know what happened to you. Might want to adjust that. There you go. Oh, there you go. Now you're back with us. All right. You fell down in your chair. Okay, now
I
you're
fell
back.
down. Here we go. Line back up. We're good to go. That's what happens with lives, right?
I'm sure there's more than a few people out there that are just happy to see you tonight. You have quite a few fans out there that love you, darling. Everybody knows Mama. Now I call her Mama because she's Josiah's mama. And Josiah, of course, is the child of promise. He is a special blessing given to us by Elohim, for which we are very grateful, who has been through much war already, the young man. He's come through much fire. Hallelujah, hallelujah. So I don't even know where to begin this conversation because there's so much to talk about when we talk about the subject of marriage. And one of the things that I like to talk about whenever I bring this up is I like to talk about, the Genesis, because we talked about this yesterday a little bit during Shabbat. And one of the things that he showed me a long time ago is that divorce actually occurs in the beginning of the relationship. And that if the foundation, and when you think it through, you realize, oh, that makes total sense. If you don't lay the cornerstone correctly, then that house is built on sand. Mm-hmm. And every house, I don't care what house it is, you're going to get wind and rain.
That's right. The storms are going to come.
There's going to be difficult times, and it's going to make, it's going to test the foundation of that relationship, right? It's going to test it. And so you, when I met you, you had done something that I didn't know anyone else had done, because I was the only one that I knew had done it. And that's that we both had a list. We had a pretty detailed and thorough list of things that we knew when we found that person that Elohim had set apart for the journey, for the great adventure, right? Because we're still on our honeymoon, so just understand that, folks. We're still traveling on our honeymoon. We'll let you know when it's over. We're just warming up. It's
It'll never
getting
be
good.
over. What are you talking about?
Getting good though, I will tell you
It's
that.
just getting started.
Just warming up.
Right. Well, you're correct. It's very important that we can have a firm foundation. It has to have a firm foundation in order for us to build the proper house. So before we even get married, and a lot of people that have been married and unequally yoked will testify to, it's not worth it. It's best to wait for who Yahuwah has for you. Yahuwah, when I wanted to get married and I started fasting and praying for a husband, because I'm like, I've chosen wrong for so many times before that. And I knew that Yahuwah needed to choose for me because I obviously chose the wrong people. And I knew exactly what I didn't want. That's for sure at that point, when I was at this point of wanting to get married and fasting and praying for who Yahuwah has for me. And I
How
was
come we're
determined just
all
to wait.
experts at what we don't want? We're all experts.
Right, exactly. So if you know what you don't want, then by default,
That's
you
a good
can
starting
figure out
point.
what you do want, right? Narrow it down.
Well, we know we don't want one of those over there. I'll tell you that. Right? You take a look across the room,
right?
and you see some hooch or something. You're like, okay, I know I don't want one of those.
Right, exactly. We see, and from experience, and a lot of us older people have made those mistakes, and Yahuwah told me to write down my vision clearly upon a tablet, like Habakkuk 2:2 says, write your vision clearly upon a tablet so those that read it can run with it. And he told me to write down what I wanted in my husband. And then he told me to turn it over. And he said, now write what you want to be for your husband. And he told me, he said, now work on yourself and I'll work on the rest. And so I did. I did my best to prepare myself for my future husband. I didn't know who he was at the time. I would sit there and imagine what his voice was going to sound like, what he was going to look like, and on my list, the first thing that was the most important to me was that he served Yahuwah and put Yahuwah first and foremost. And I knew that I was called to be with somebody that was called to the ministry. And when I started like looking at kind of looking, and saying, all right, I'm going to put myself out there a little bit. I would straight tell guys, I'm like, I'm not looking for somebody to date. I'm not looking for a boyfriend. I'm not looking for a roommate. I'm looking for my husband, and he's called to preach the gospel. So if that's not you, let's not waste our time. I wasn't looking to date. There's a difference between dating and courting. Dating is you're just seeing what's out there and, testing out the field. Courting is, no, Yahuwah told me this was supposed to be my spouse, and now I'm marrying this person. When I was fasting and praying for my husband, I was like, I prayed that Yahuwah would tell us both at the same time, because I'd hear these stories of one knowing and the other one not. And I'm like, I don't want to go through that. And I definitely don't want to put somebody that, I'm supposed to be with through that either. That's torture.
Torturous.
Torture,
Yes.
Right. And Yahuwah did tell us at the same time, and I suppose we can get into that, but it was very important to set the foundation and have that list so that I knew what I was looking for, knew what wasn't, because I definitely could weed out a lot of the guys that were trying to be with me, even would pretend to want to be in ministry just so I would marry them. But I knew in my ruach, I'm like, no, you're not him. But when I met Peter, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt. There was no doubt in my mind, because Yahuwah told me. He told both of us, and there was no way that we could have gotten that from our, any other way but from Yahuwah, the way that everything panned out. So if you have that firm foundation and you want to be married, that's important. That desire to, like, I want to be married, and that's the life that I desire to have.
Yeah, well, that was something that we talked about and we pointed out in Shabbat yesterday that that you and I wholeheartedly agree on, and it is a critical piece, I believe, of the right mindset for having not only a long-term relationship that lasts, but that's enjoyable. I mean, there's people that are miserably long-term married, right? So they're miserable, and and a lot of times it's because they don't love being married. They were expecting the other person to make them happy.
Right.
And we don't approach it that way. So
Right.
Mindy, when I met her, was already happy.
Yeah. I was just looking for somebody to enhance it, make me laugh more.
So basically, I met her, she was happy, and I just tried really hard not to ruin it. Pretty much that's the deal.
He makes me laugh all day. That's a secret, men. Make your woman laugh. It's a
This is
necessity.
true. It's a
Out of
necessity.
everything, I mean, of course, number one is
It's
seeking out
scriptural. It
Yahweh
says
first and
you have to
foremost.
cheer up your wife. That's what it says.
Yes.
The first year, you have to cheer her up. So I actually told. So I was counseling one brother, and I think they're they're on here too. So I love you guys. I won't call you out, but you'll know who I'm talking about. And I was encouraging my brother, and it was the first year of their marriage, and I said, "Oh, by the way, go buy a joke book." And I know his personality. He's a bit dry sometimes, and he's a bit, he's one of those very stoic people, it's really put together, very classy, very strong man, very good man, amazing guy, like high respect for this guy. But I'm like, dude, you need a joke book.
Yeah.
And he goes, I need a what? And he thought I was kidding at first. I'm like, no, I'm serious.
And it's
you need a joke book.
Everything's doing better now.
Right? Why?
Yeah.
Because you need to cheer up your wife, man. And you need to become funny, dude. And you need help in this area. So buy a joke book. You got to at least read at least one joke a day, man. At least one, man. Grease the wheel, man. Come on.
Right.
Get in there with me.
Well, us ladies, we can become emotional. So it's like, we need our husbands to kind of help us even out sometimes, because we can become little roller coasters at times. So
how many of you So how many of you are hanging out with us tonight and you thought I was the preacher, right?
You are the preacher, honey.
Come on, admit it. You thought I was the preacher. Come on. And now you're all finding out who the real preacher in this family really is back there, right? Behind every man is a woman cracking that whip going, come on, man, you can do this.
Before Peter and I got married, I used to minister to ladies and do praise and worship and stuff. And I always said, if you desires for, when I do get married, if my husband is, out there preaching the word, I don't need to. I can sit down and just support him and be part of his mission. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I was perfectly fine with sitting down. I didn't mind. And so, I helped Peter with his mission. That's part of being a wife, is being submissive to her husband. And now, before, because I went through in my life, like a lot of us have gone through bad relationships. A lot of women hear the word submissive and it's like throwing a cat in water. That's the way it was for me. I'm like, submit? What? Because I'm thinking the way that I would see submission, that I was taught submission through my life, was that it was to be abused. But that's not true submission.
No,
true submission is to be part of a mission. So when I realized that, I was like, I'm going to jump on my husband's mission, and I'm fine with sitting down, because it's our mission together. And a lot of women get like, well, what about my calling? What about our calling is to help our husbands fulfill their mission, because it's we're a mission together. That's why the word says that we're to become one. And we're no longer two. We become one, and we become one in the mission. And eventually it becomes to the point where you become so united that you actually have the same thoughts. It happens to us on a daily basis,
every day,
all day long, every day, where we literally have the exact same thoughts.
Get out of my head.
That's how it is. We like have the same thoughts. It's insane. It's crazy how.
Speaking of which, your rent is due. Your rent in my head is due.
We gotta pay each other rent for it.
That's right. My goodness.
But anybody that's in a united relationship, and there is different types of relationship. Obviously, there's some people that are unequally yoked, and that's a tragedy. So, we see in the scriptures and in the apocryphas as well, we see the older teaching the younger, but a lot of times what they're teaching, like you listen to the 12 patriarchs in the Apocrypha, it's them telling their kids and their grandkids on their deathbed things that they've repented of, things that they're warning them about. Like Reuben was warning about, don't fornicate, don't do what I did. You know, he fasted, did a Daniel's fast for 7 years because he was so just repentant and just devastated over the fact that he took his father's concubine Bilhah, you know. And so that was what he was talking about on his deathbed. And so you see all of these examples in the scripture, how the older people would teach the younger what not to do. Yes, there's examples of what to do as well, but there is so many examples of the people telling them what not to do. So that
cautionary tales. Yeah.
Yes. Like what Apostle was saying yesterday, why does each season, it's like a different time in life, and there's nothing new under the sun. So we have this cycle of promiscuous, then whole people going back to holy and righteous in the way of Yahweh, then back to promiscuous, and it's like it's going back and forth. And so I do believe in this season that it is the time of the older to teach the younger to stop making excuses for the mistakes that we've made, because a lot of us have made many mistakes, you know. Don't make excuses for the mistakes we made. Teach the younger ones not to make the same mistakes, and then say, and this is a good example of how doing it the right way. You know, we're able to now minister to the young ones on how to do it the right way. We both have done it the wrong way before. Now we went to Yahweh and let Yahweh bring us together and let Yahweh be involved in who we're going to be with. And now we can see there's this major difference between Yahweh, what Yahweh puts together, versus what man puts together, what we think that we want, or just being in love, like Apostle was saying. We actually have a mission. So there's times in a marriage where you may not like your spouse very much. You may be mad at them. They may have aggravated you about something. Let's close on the floor.
Perish the thought.
You know? I know. I mean, who knows? Or forgot your condiments or something like that. You know, so they're agitating you. You know, it's like, how many times are you going to forget the condiments, right?
The ketchup. Where is the ketchup?
Inside joke. But when you're in those moments, it's really important to know that Yahuwah put you together, because you can hold on to those moments when you're upset with that person. The enemy is trying to come in and say, maybe you made the wrong decision. You know, you guys aren't really on.
Everybody has to go through that. Hath Elohim really said.
Yes,
that moment.
You will go through that in a marriage. You will. The enemy will come, and he will come and test you. So if you have that firm foundation, have already been told, no, this is my husband by Yahuwah, then that settles it, and it doesn't matter what happens. Same thing with joining a ministry. That's why we tell people, make sure that you pray and that you get a word directly from Yahuwah that you belong here in Remnant House or wherever you belong, because there's going to come a time where we're going to say something you may not like. That's just the reality of it. And so you need to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Yahuwah put you here.
See what I mean? See what I mean about she just went ahead and said the quiet part out loud. She got no filter.
I'm messing my flow. But you need to know, because we're going to say things that you're not going to be happy about. And then you can say, okay, I may not like it, but let me bring it to Yahuwah, because I know that Yahuwah put me here underneath this authority. And the same thing as a wife. It's very important for a woman to find a good husband that follows Yahuwah, because a lot of us have been through a lot of abuse, a lot of trauma, and have been traumatized. And a lot of men too. I'm not just going to say women. I know a lot of men that have been traumatized by women. And Reuben, in the Apocrypha of Reuben, it actually says that women are more acceptable to fornication than men, because we tend to use it against the man to lure them in.
I think the way he said it was the spirit. He says the spirit of fornication will come more. I think he said it more easily upon a woman.
Yes, more easily upon a woman. That's exactly what it says. Yes. So it's not, we have to be careful so that we don't, we all know this, ladies. We all know that it is easy to use our bodies to manipulate a man. We know that. So as older women, we're called to teach the younger ladies not to do that, and to stay holy and pure and set apart, so that there can be more marriages like Josie and Chase, I mean, they're just sweet, you know. And you know, Chase has waited, and he's been working for Yahweh for so many years. We've watched him work diligently unto Yahweh, not being concerned about a wife, but being concerned about Yahuwah's business and trusting that Yahuwah is going to bring his wife. And he did. Yahuwah brought his wife, you know, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. They're going to have their struggles, but they'll be okay because that Yahuwah brought them together.
That's right. And what
Amen.
he puts together, no man
can
put asunder. And so
Yep.
we believe that. And when you've been through enough, and one thing that we definitely want to emphasize and speak over that next generation that's coming up, I do believe that we have a generation that is watching the results. It can't run from it. The data is hard data. It's hard to run from it. Information is what it is. Results are what they are. And they're looking at it and they're saying, you know what, you guys went the wrong way, which is exactly what's happened in previous waves through humanity's history. Like I said, during Shabbat, you know, we went from Sodom and Gomorrah to the Renaissance, right? So we've had series of times through history where people went the other way. They repented as a society, even, and realizing, man, we went the wrong way. And that's how we end up with the 50s, right? After the roaring 20s, you know, we end up with the 50s. Everybody remembers the 50s as being, you know, Ozzie and Harriet and Leave It to Beaver and excuse me, the family orientation that was there, and the atmosphere of wholesomeness was definitely promoted, and it was definitely the atmosphere of society more so than it is today. And then we went down sort of that dark road, right? So we went down this horrible road, and you know, there's that whole thing about weak men. You know, weak men bring hard times, and so we're going through these hard times. But what's going to happen? It's going to flip the other way. We're going to have strength is going to come as a result of that. And so those that are wise, that are seeing what's coming, they're getting in front of it, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to get with what Yahuwah is doing now, because you see, he's bringing people out of agreement with the world, out of agreement with the way the world and the Walt Disney satanic picture, the Romeo and Juliet picture. And Mindy and I have an amazing relationship. I would dare say extremely romantic, extremely filled with a lot of love and laughter and happiness. But it didn't begin on that. It wasn't built on that. It wasn't built on, you know, wanting to have a romantic relationship. It wasn't built on, I want to find a funny guy, or I want to find a woman that, you know, this, that, and the other. It was, you know, I'm called to do certain things, and I'm going to go do them. And I'll never forget, I was done looking. I had come to the end of my search. I had exhausted all effort to you know, solve this myself. So basically, Elohim had me name all the animals. Okay, so I had to go through all the earth naming all these animals. Okay. I don't know what that is, but that's not my helpmeet. I don't know what that is. And I had all kinds of names for all kinds of things. I saw Beautiful and Brainless was available at wholesale from New York to California, right? So, you know, there was a lot of animals to name, things that were not a match, things that were not, what, you know, great to see them. You see people all over, but who's there for you? Who's your helpmeet? The person that is literally like coming out of your side and built for you and for your mission and for what you are called to do, you know. And I got to the point where I said, okay, I'm done looking. I can't find this person. I don't know what I'm doing here, because I was in Florida. And so I don't know why I'm even here. And that's when he spoke to me, and he said, now that you're willing to go alone, I'll send you help. You have to deal with yourself. You know, so many people, and I know you understand this. We've talked a lot about this, but I definitely want you to share your thoughts. A lot of people think that, you know, that they have to be in a relationship to be okay. And one of the things that we both discovered is that we needed to be okay regardless of being in a relationship. First, we needed to be okay with Elohim and in our own skin. Yes, you know, desiring to want to be in a state that's an improvement over that, sure. But there's something to be said about being very content right where you are. And that's one of the
100%.
critical pieces that we both had to get to. So I
Yes.
wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yep, I completely agree. Like I said, before I met Peter, I was already ministering, doing Bible studies and teaching older and younger women, honestly, with the position I was in, and doing praise and worship. I was ministering already. And so I knew my purpose in Yahuwah. I already knew that I was called to preach the gospel with my husband. I didn't completely know what that looked like or what that looked like for me or my husband. Of course, at the time I was in Christianity, so I thought that it was going to be the typical Sunday church. I'm so grateful that it's not that. Now, as I look back and I'm awake now, I see how things progressed. But I was very confident in who I was with Yahweh. I knew my relationship with Yahweh. I knew that Yahweh loved me, and I knew that he had somebody for me. I remember when I would show people my list, and anybody that knows my testimony, I won't get all into that, but I would show them my list and they would say, there's no man that is even alive that exists with all of these qualities, much less a man that would be with you, based on my past and what I went through. And I was like, nope, I don't care what anybody says. I stood on faith and I'm like, I know this is what Yahuwah desires for me, and I'm gonna stand on this, and I believed in faith, and I fasted and prayed, for my husband. There was times I remember that it was like in the Ruach, I knew I needed to stop what I was doing and go pray for my husband. Later on, after Peter and I got together and we would start talking about our lives and we would start combining, like putting together pieces of where we were at in different places in our lives. And I found out that at that time when I was really praying against witchcraft for him, where he was like, no, your husband's under some major witchcraft. He was going through some stuff where there was somebody that was definitely had witchcraft and he was dealing with that very thing. We find out later on. So even before you're married to your husband or your wife, there may be times as you're just that Yahuwah is going to stir you up and say, you need to pray for them now. You need to pray for them now. Because they're in trouble.
Did y'all hear that? So this is being married before you're actually married, right? So
yes.
This is being so committed to the concept of marriage, being committed to the responsibilities that even before meeting the person physically.
Yes.
And even before, having the physical connection and the natural connection, you're already beginning your spiritual connection. Okay. This is critically important because each person in any relationship, you have responsibilities. Yes. And those responsibilities are serious. Now, again, just like in our case, do you think that Elohim was gonna say, considering what I went through, I'm just gonna match him with just anybody? I knew he wouldn't do that because of what I had gone through. Exactly. It would have to be a person that could carry the responsibilities. And she's right. I had a list that was equally daunting, right?
Yeah.
And so
I'm learning Spanish.
Right. That's the only thing on there. And it was equally daunting. And what was that really you had to realize that if Elohim doesn't thread this needle, it doesn't happen, right?
That's right.
And is there anything wrong with that? No. I know some people that they're like, unless Elohim brings the correct person or puts me in the correct relationship status that works for my life, that they're going to stay exactly where they are. And frankly, I respect that. You need to respect that, because there are too many people that are running around with empty, open, broken hearts. Their hearts are not working properly, and they're hoping that a relationship is going to heal that. And I would suggest to you that that's like saying, I have a car with a busted engine, and I hope I can date a guy who's a mechanic.
It don't work like that.
And your whole plan is to date someone that can just fix your engine for you. This is the crazy with which we go in, because we don't hold our, we don't get the kind of I don't want to say training, but ministry and upbringing that we would have gotten in an environment, in a society that was of course, ordered by the commandments and ordinances of Elohim, and that your parentage were all on board with his program. Like you see Abraham in the case of Isaac, and you see Isaac in the case of Yaakov. Both times, they're trusting Elohim to do something miraculous in order to have that connection, so that your marriage is built on a supernatural foundation, not a natural, not a carnal foundation.
Most important.
So if your foundation is built on sand, then the wind and the rain will wash the foundation away, and that house will fall. And that's why you see the divorce rate the way you see it, because it's not Elohim putting these relationships together. Many of them are trying to use a marriage certificate as a validation of infidelity or fornication, sin, basically trying to cover sin with a ceremony. No repentance, just a ceremony.
Right.
That doesn't quite work. It's not about the graciousness of Elohim. It's about the brokenness of the heart.
Yes.
And so again, where does divorce occur? It occurs at the foundation. Yes. So if you don't do the foundation correctly, in other words, you don't get a word from Yahweh, so he has to speak, or he has to make his will known, as in the case of, say, Jacob, or the case of Isaac. He makes his will known, and he opens doors that no man can shut. And so it's Elohim, and that holds you together differently, because whenever there's trouble, that's when you start to remember that's when you're going to question foundation. Right then, when the wind and rain is coming, that's when you're going to go, that's when women and men, both will start questioning, should I even be here?
Yes.
Was I even supposed to do this? Maybe I should never have even gotten married to you.
Yep.
Right. Now we're having this problem. We've got this stress. Oh my goodness. Maybe this whole thing, maybe all the problems we're having are because I married you. Is a good one. Right.
Yep.
My life was great until I got married. Right. Or I heard wrong.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay. That means that word is going to get tested, right? That word that you received, is it real? And the question is, are you going to pass?
Right.
And nobody can do that for you.
Yep.
Like, you've got to go through that yourself. Like, I couldn't do that for Mindy. There was a moment in our marriage when she had to go, am I going the right way? Like, is this, she needed to get her own reassurance. I couldn't do that.
Right.
If I tried to do that, if I talked her into it,
would have done the opposite.
Well, then that person's there because you talked them into it, because it's something you said or promised, right? And now that's a pie crust promise, puts pressure on the relationship. No, it's not the way it's supposed to work. If Elohim brought them, then Elohim keeps them.
Yeah.
Okay? Unless he build a house, they labor in vain that build it. So, Father wants something done right, he has to do it himself.
Yep. That's true. He does. He has to put he has to put together who he wants to put together. And you have to think about it. If you're just going off and you're just marrying anybody, I started thinking about the fact that if I'm meant to be if Yahweh has me designed and created me to be one with one of his sons, whoever I'm with, whether I know him or not, I'm ultimately cheating on that person. And when I realized that was devastating to me. I had to repent for a lot of sins that I did before that, but now that when Yahweh put us together, it was
if you're not with the person that you're supposed to be with, even if you're not with
dating, them and you don't know them yet, they're still your spouse. They're still the one that Yahweh chose for you to be with.
That's how I felt. I felt like, man, I know that person's out there.
Yeah.
And I wrote, in fact, my profile was basically a message in a bottle.
Yes.
It was
it was mesmerizing. I suppose they probably want to hear this whole story.
Toss the bottle in the ocean and say, if you get this, then you're the one, because I tried to find you and I couldn't find you, so sorry. I was like, peace out, man. I can't do this. Like, I'm not trying to be out here for long walks on the beach and whatever else these guys are writing. You know, like you read these
I had a
profiles, right?
purpose.
I like hiking, long walks on the beach,
No
right?
thanks.
What was I
No.
supposed to put on my profile? Well, we might have to go to New York to blow, to prophesy on the top of the World Trade Center. We might end up in Washington, D.C. prophesying over the Washington Monument. And we might have to sell all we have and go blow the trumpet on the
Multiple
Mount of
times sell
Olives.
everything we have. And
Right?
how about if
How do I
one
put that
day
in my
we're
profile,
here,
right?
right, one day we're here, and just know that one day you might be one place, and then the next week we're going to be in a completely different country.
Another country.
Another country, not even a different place, a whole other country.
That's right. Let's see if you're willing to go through it, right? You're willing to get
But
through the
hey,
other side.
I was willing to follow you wherever you would led you,
trooper.
I knew.
Best travel buddy ever. Awesome
yes.
travel partner. I tell you what, and we had some moments that were not fun. Travel moments that were very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We had to say the least. That were not comfortable. And of course, as you can tell, she for whatever reason, I don't know what's in that cup, but she drinks something and then laughs at my jokes. So we're just hoping Elohim just keeps putting it in her water glass, and we just keep on laughing our way through this crazy thing, because a lot of it is just nuts. Okay, like the way the devil will manifest, the way our enemy will try to stop the mission, but it's in a clunky, silly, dumb attacks in dumb ways that we just kind of walk over, but you still notice it and you're going, what was that? And so, when you're called, when Elohim has called you, if you're one of those that are out there that Elohim is, well, he's called all of you. Many are called, few are chosen. So if he selected you, then you're going to have extraordinary and odd types of attacks. You're going to have odd, strange, conflicts and weird. People will hate you and they won't be able to tell you why. And they'll be opposed to something and they won't even be able to articulate what the reason is. And then that's one of the ways that that you're dealing with something very spiritual and it's not natural. And so, but let me just encourage all of you who have a word from Elohim and you walked it out, just keep walking it out, because eventually even your enemies will go, never mind. I thought this about you, and now 5, 10, 15 years later, I have a different opinion. So you win them over.
A lot of people doubted our marriage. I know Peter talked about my dad's response with it. My mom would be perfectly fine with me talking about this. We laugh about it now because she loves Peter now, but she was not on board. As far as she knew, her daughter just out of nowhere just met this guy, and then all of a sudden she's engaged and gonna get married. She's like, you just met this guy. I'm like, Mom, I know you don't understand, but Yahweh told me he's to be my husband, and she didn't understand it because she's not in the same place as I am spiritually. But my dad he needed to get permission from my dad. My dad was, he was like, okay, whatever, I don't care. She's 29, let her do what she wants to do. If she'll have you, okay, whatever. I love you guys, My mom was like telling my dad, what are you doing? You're not going to let her marry this guy, are you? What if he takes her off to Texas in a cult or something? Now I joke with her and I say, oh, Mom, it was Arizona out in the middle of nowhere. And she'll laugh, because she's now she's like, oh gosh, Mindy, she's fine. Like she is just happy. And my family will thank Peter a lot. They're like, gosh, you make her so happy. Like she's always so happy. Well, why wouldn't I be happy? We have such a peaceful life. It's like our life is filled with so much shalom. Right. I mean, we have like I said, we gotten to the point where it's like our thoughts are the same. Like who has really put us one. But a big thing was that, that I stayed on the same vision, that I stayed helping with the same vision, and that we didn't allow our visions to divide. Because if you allow your vision to divide, your house isn't going to stand. You guys are going to be trying to hold up things that you can't do it. You have to do it as a team. And so if like Yahweh, the man has to know, you have to know where you're going. What is your calling? What are you doing? Because where are you leading this woman? And women, we have to learn that, we have to unlearn the American woman way, because I know that there was a lot of things that I had to overcome. And Peter is real gracious, and he gives me a lot of grace for, the struggles that I still had to go through when I got married to him, because I still had a lot of American theology, and there was still strongholds that I had to get rid of. Like, I'm just able to run my household however I want and do whatever I want. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to be in a lawful, anointed, Yahuwah appointed relationship. It should be where the woman feels safe with the husband and trusts that he's listening to Yahuwah. And even if things don't work out the way that we expect, or we thought something was going to go wrong, and even if it does go wrong, we trust that our husband is following Yahuwah, and that even if he may make a mistake, that Yahuwah will come and will bless that regardless, because we're doing it together as one. And honestly, majority of the time, like, Yahuwah just leads it and it works out, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is the way we're supposed to go. And it's like, we're called to be part of that mission. Like, if our husband has some kind of vision, we need to pray that Yahuwah gives us that same vision if we don't have that same vision, because that is very, very important, especially if you're called to ministry. It's like you have to be united, because
That's right.
that division, that could, it's division. Things will die off, and people aren't going to receive everything that they need to receive, no matter what your calling is, but especially if you're called to minister to other people.
Yeah, there can be no division. That is something that when you come together, and there's a bit of no matter how well matched you are, and I mean, you can be divinely connected, there's going to be points where you need to work things out. How many know that Adam needed to work that out with Eve? And he didn't do it correctly. Elohim corrected him and said, because thou hast hearkened to the voice of thy wife, right? So clearly the expectation of Elohim in the garden was that Adam would have rebuked his wife, right?
Yes.
So that is clearly implied by the rebuke Adam receives from Elohim.
Right.
So if you love your wife, there may be times when you have to say, hey, I love you, but you're going the wrong way. And this attitude that you're taking and this thought process that you're going through is incorrect, and we need to stop right here and clean this up. If you don't do that, and what did we learn? We learned in the scripture reading that a man who holds his peace is essentially affirming. Tilt your camera down again, honey. You're down. There you go. Atta girl. A man who holds his peace, he's basically affirming the choice his wife has made, right? So if his wife has said some things out of her mouth, and the man goes super passive, right? Because he's just like, whatever, I'm done, I'm tired, and he lets it go. He's letting her words be firm. He's letting the cement dry. Okay, he's gonna have dried cement on that thing now. So you can't, marriage isn't for cowards. It's not for the lazy.
No, it's not.
A husband is a cultivator. That's what we're going to talk about this next week. But a husband is cultivator. He's a person who understands that he is responsible for the proper nutrients and cultivation and protection of that gardening, if you will, or husbanding, so that you get a good result, right?
Yes.
And so that may mean you pull your wife aside and say, hey, this 600-word essay that you wrote here, how about we punctuate it and add some spaces and make it a little more legible and digestible, because you made some good points in here,
right?
But you wrote it in such a way that no one's going to read this, and no one's going to receive what you have to say. So rather than put you out like that, let's dice this up into pieces, 1 and 2 sentence paragraphs, and let's punctuate. And oh, by the way, instead of saying you, write out the word you, it won't kill you, and things like that. And these are husbanding things, right?
Yes.
And when I met Mindy, these are the kinds of things that there's small refinements and little things that, we had to work on, and she took to it beautifully. Mindy was not, by her own admission, so she is very humble about this, she was not a very good cook when we met.
Oh gosh,
Now,
I could burn water. You guys don't even know.
she was not.
I made
That's
ramen
all I'm
and
gonna say.
tomato,
I'm
guys,
not
with
gonna say
tuna.
it worse than that. She just wasn't. It was before, and now we have the after picture where we have a
Peter's
bell on
helped
the
me a lot
table
with cooking.
where if you have a winner, the bell gets rung, and Mindy is like the all-time winner of the bell by far and away. Like,
Oh,
she
thank you,
is
though.
got, but it took time, right? So it took time,
Good.
and it took honesty.
Yes.
It took
Honesty.
saying, this isn't a keeper. Okay. Let's not keep this one, so that it was the recipe we were critiquing, not the person.
Yes.
And little things like that, which recover the heart. So when you meet one another, you're more than likely going to be meeting people that are broken hearted. This doesn't mean that she's an amazing cook now. This doesn't mean that that they're always walking around sad. What it means is that in different situations, their heart might not work correctly.
Right.
Their heart might not work correctly. And so part of being in a marriage is helping one another recover your heart, recover from the damage that was done by enemies, people that abused you, people that spoke evil against you, people that weren't in your corner when you needed someone in your corner. Like, everyone can be in the world can be against me. As long as Mindy's in my corner, I feel like I don't care if you all, like, I don't necessarily want to make enemies, but if I happen to, it doesn't have the same impact on me, because when you're surrounded by people who truly love you, then you can stand your ground on whatever you believe. And if it makes someone angry or whatever, you can keep going. Whereas in the past, it might have affected you differently.
Yes.
Because you needed to be healed. Like, you needed to be, someone had to make it okay for you to be you. For you to be you, to be just you. And that's one of the things that marriage does, is it let Peter be Peter, it let Mindy be Mindy.
Yes.
Nobody stops you. No one, and my job is to protect that and let her be her. Yep. Little did I know she would become the chicken lady. I gotta tell you the story.
Never would have thought that. Oh my gosh.
So I'm in the mall with Mindy. We're engaged. And her mom's got a real, kind of a dry sense of humor. And so I'm standing there, just being a good, fiance, holding her coat or whatever I'm doing while I'm waiting for her to shop. And I'm just standing there, and she's doing her thing, and so whatever. And the phone rings. So it's your mom, and she says, "Well, pick it up." And so I pick it up and start the conversation with mom. And so she tells me to tell Mindy that she needs to come home now because they need to butcher the chickens. This is what she tells me. She says, tell Mindy.
Real monotone, too.
Real monotone,
Peter.
too. Just like that. Peter.
Tell Mindy.
We need to butcher the chickens. So I'm looking mortified. I'm standing there, in some mall, in some inner city, like suburban mall, and her mom lives out in the country somewhere, like somewhere way out there, Wisconsin somewhere, right? And like an hour from where we are, and I'm like mortified. Like, I bet the blood probably drained out of my face, and I look at Mindy and I'm like,
he looked horrible.
Mindy, your mom says that we need to go out and butcher the chicken. And she does exactly what she just does right there. She starts busting up. That's the moment I knew that it was a joke. Up until that point, I had no idea. So the grandkids all call her Grandma Chicken, right?
Yeah.
Is it Grandma Chicken or Chicken Grandma? Chicken Grandma, they call her. Chicken Grandma. I always get it backwards.
Crazy Chicken Grandma, they call
her. Crazy Chicken Grandma. That's what they call her mom. Little did I know that Mindy would become the chicken mama now.
I know. And my my whole family was
You
like,
guys, you guys think that, you know, you got your wife, she's dropping the makeup and dropping the false holidays. You're going to save money because you started a homestead. Is that what you thought? You thought that was what
you're
was going to
gonna
happen?
spend way more money.
Yeah, let me clue you in, okay? They're going to
Oh my
switch
gosh.
from that to chickens and everything chicken. And oh my goodness. It's in her genetics.
It
That's
is
right.
in my genetics, Octavia. It is. I love animals.
That's
I
funny.
never used to like want dogs. Now I just can't get enough of our pups, you know? So it's definitely chicken math. Yeah. The chicken math. I'm just looking at getting more chickens. I don't even have anywhere to put them, but I'm looking at getting another 30.
I never would have thought, like, if you would have asked me when we first got married, and you would have said, you know, your wife's going to be like crazy about chickens in about 8, 9
I didn't even
years from
want to
now,
live out in the
whatever.
country.
Like, if you'd have told me that, I would have said, no way. I'm like, no way. No way. No way. Right? Yeah, way. Oh my
I
goodness.
still wear
It's
my
hilarious.
dresses. I just wear combat boots with my dresses. So I still like my dresses. I'll clean
Well,
out.
she now has a zippy, so that makes it
I
even
do
better.
have a
So.
zippy. He blessed me with a little golf cart. I call it zippy. And so I zip around. So it's better for my feet, which my feet now are completely healed. Praise you. I'm so grateful for that. That was
Chicken lady
really,
with a
really
zippy.
bad.
Who'd have thunk it? She's just doing
I
her own
know.
thing.
Well, you know, I've changed though, and that's part of being a husband, gentlemen, is to tend to your garden. That's what a husband does. A husbandry is tending to a garden. We're a garden. Sometimes we're prickly, like a rose. We can hurt you. We're prickly, so you got to help us, like, you know, get the prickles off of us. You
Be
know, that's
nice.
your job, to present us pure and holy before Yahuwah. So that is part of a husband's job, is just to help us refine, become better of ourselves. And that's what Peter's done. He's helped me overcome character defects that may have happened from you know, childhood traumas or whatever it was, you know, that, you know, things I didn't even realize that I still dealt with, or wrong thought processes. There has been many strong,
and vice versa. She's just as much helped me. I like to say she picked me up off the ground, but she's just as much helped me as I helped her. So just, it's not one-sided. But anyway, go ahead, honey.
Now I lost my thought. I got all goo got with you. I don't remember where I was at.
You go goofy. Goofball. It's not one-sided, you know. It's a two-way street, and you know, you were saying that I was helping you with you know, certain things with character, and
yes,
we have very high integrity friends, and
yes,
we live in a very high integrity life with a lot of light. So, you know, if you, which is good, which is, you know, get used to that. That's the kingdom. You know, some people complain about surveillance. I'm like, I live under surveillance 24/7. Like, everything I do is watched, you know, and that's okay. Get used to that. And you know, realize that, hey, that's life. But you live a high integrity life. And if you're coming from like more darkness, where people don't really know what you're doing, you don't have a really high accountability life, and you suddenly have that, and like you're scrutinized all the time, and you're not used to that. It can be overwhelming.
Very overwhelming. I grew up where there wasn't a lot of accountability, and so you could make excuses for things. And so when I got with Peter, he's no excuses. And at first, I mean, I'm like, my gosh, you know, it's like, felt a little like restrictive and abusive, and I'm like, what? But then when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be, you know. It wasn't, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do, but I was so used to being controlled that I didn't realize that he was actually attempting to free me. But Yahuwah knew that with my strong personality, and anybody that knows me knows that I have a very strong personality. And so he knew that I needed, and I prayed when I was fasting, praying for my husband. I knew that I needed somebody that was very strong, because otherwise I would run all over him, because that's just my personality. I'm like, here, I'll just take charge and I'll just do it. Well, I knew that wasn't the way that I was designed to be in the kingdom. So Yahuwah had to put me with somebody that was going to be stronger than me, and that would know how to deal with me when I was in my being difficult. and helping me through some of these character defects that I developed throughout the years that I didn't even realize were wrong. And especially the strongholds that come from American thinkings. And a lot I see even with women that are in our belief system, they still struggle with that a lot, and they don't realize that it's a stronghold that's attached to them that's trying to keep them from the purpose of Yahuwah, to become like to continue to be kind of like manly, to go over into that
No,
manly role.
there's a serious confusion that came in. And as a matter of fact, I was watching. There's a lot of social experimentation that we're seeing now that's making the light of day. And one little social experiment I saw was somebody going through a bunch of men and saying, "Do you need women?" And every one of them, 201, said, "Absolutely, we need women. We need our women. We need our mothers, our sisters, our aunts, And then they went and they split screened it to a bunch of women, and they said, "Do you need men?" And they're all 201 saying, "No, we don't need men.
Yeah.
Men are unnecessary. They're like an accessory. They're a plaything. They're something. If I need it, I need it. In that moment, like a tow truck driver or a plumber. But other than that, I don't need a man." And this is the fruit of the thinking that you're talking about, which runs completely contrary to the kingdom. So, when a man, and this is just the difference between men and women, and when a man gets resources, he thinks about building a family. And when women under the control of these other spirits, and I say it that way because when they come in under the Ruach, they don't behave this way. So we see a big, huge difference between those who are under the anointing and filled with the Ruach HaKodesh versus filled with the spirit of this age.
Yeah.
Those who are filled with the spirit of this age, as soon as they became financially independent, if they were to, suddenly inherit some money or have a big success, their default thinking is disconnection.
Yes.
Is, okay, now I don't need to be in this marriage anymore, so I need to disconnect. I saw somebody making fun of it, like, asked the woman, and they made a joke out of it because they had won $40 in the lottery. And so he said, "What would you do if I won the lottery?" And he's like, "Think big." And she says, "Oh, well, I'd leave you, take half, and go live on an island somewhere." And he goes, "Oh, what's your lucky day? Because I happened to win the lottery. I won $40. Here's your 20. Here's my 20. Adios."
Well, 80% of marriages are ended by women, not men. And it's because us women, it's like men have a different perspective. Men, it's like you said, their whole reason is to take care of a wife and a family. Women, if we take on that role and that thought process, it's like, no, I'll take care of myself. Because we're not designed to do that. It's the man is designed to be the provider. We're designed to help. So
if the economic situation changing, if the economics change the relationship was not built on a proper foundation, right? So the economics should come and go. You should be able to have much and have little, and it really shouldn't matter. It shouldn't make any difference one way or the other. And we see that pictured. I want to put it up here on the screen here for a moment, with the virtuous woman in Proverbs chapter 31. And so I want to take a minute to just, put us back here on the scripture, just to take a look at that. And it says, "Whoso findeth the virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her." So you see, this is very different than that Western mindset, where if that woman becomes successful, the modern American Western man is fear for his life, because there's a high likelihood he'll get dumped. There's a high likelihood that he'll be tossed to the side, that he's being used only for resources. This is extremely common. So I'm not bad mouthing anybody. I'm just saying this is the atmosphere that a lot of people find themselves in. It says the heart of her husband doth safely trust in her. This right there, you right there alone is a huge issue that I think a lot of relationships are not. That they take that for granted. So that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. Look at that.
Yes.
This is a wife. This is the Proverbs 31 wife. This is not somebody that is just biding her time. And when she finally gets success, she's Adi 5,000, right? She seeketh wool and flax. So wool gives you a certain harmonic frequency that heals the body at 5,000. Same thing with flax, which makes linen. So these are winter and summer. So she seeketh winter and summer clothing that heals and recovers her body, her family, and worketh willingly with her hands. So she is not compelled. She knows the mission, and she's on mission. Okay,
Yep.
so it's really important. She is like the merchant ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maiden. So she's a good manager of her household. She considereth the field and buyeth it. Look at this. She's conducting commerce. She's a businesswoman. Okay, this is the Proverbs 31 woman who is literally like the utility player in this marriage. With the fruit of her hands, she planted a vineyard. Hello. She ain't scared. Okay. She girdeth her loins with strength and strengtheneth her arms. Like I said, she perceiveth that her merchandise is good. So she produces merchandise. So she's doing, look at this. This is all conduct that many people would think, oh, this is only for the world. No, this is in the kingdom. But notice that she is considered by her husband trustworthy. He's not worried about her trying to become financially independent of him.
Right.
Okay. She perceives that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretched out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reached forth her hand to the needy. This continues to bring forth the blessing upon that family.
Amen.
She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her she maketh fine linen and selleth it, and delivereth girdles to the merchant. Look at this. Okay, successful. She's successful. This is part of a successful marriage. This is the way that it's supposed to be. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. Look at this. She opened up her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue is the Torah of kindness. She looked well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up, and what are they? They call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. Okay?
Amen.
Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth Yahweh, she shall be praised. Hallelujah. That's a good word. And so we see the rebuke of the modern version, which says, when I finally get my ship finally comes in, when I finally am selling to the merchants, when I'm finally selling my linen in the market, I'm leaving you, right? I'm dipping. I'm out of here. I'm not involved in the mission. I'm not part of your vision or your purpose. And so you end up with severe betrayal, treachery. This is treasonous. We see it both ways. We see it with the man who, marries a woman who supports him and strengthens him, and he finally makes it. And when he finally makes it, he runs off with the secretary and leaves the wife of his youth behind. And we saw Elohim flat rebuke that man, okay,
Right.
and saying, you're not going to be blessed if you decide you're going to just switcheroo when there's only one way that you could have done that.
One.
And she was faithful to you. You're supposed to be faithful to her. So there's the right way to do this. And we see the blessing is actually on the Proverbs 31 wife.
Yep.
And I wonder how many women never notice that. And you see a picture of it with our sister Octavia,
Yep.
where not only is their business good, their business is successful, but all that they set their hand onto, you watch the blessing. This is a united team, an amazing example to all of you, right? So you see that, and you're seeing Elohim bless them for their obedience and their humility, and coming into one purpose, coming into a singular vision, no longer trying to go in two different directions, not doing their own thing. I got my own money and all of that nonsense. Right.
And Octavia could have easily have
she'll
done
even
that
tell you.
she was in.
No, she flat calls herself out. She's like, no,
Yeah.
I had to wake up.
Right.
Okay,
I mean,
kind of.
Octavia was an attorney. We all know that. So she was obviously, she started out, she's been very open that they started out humble beginnings. Anybody that's been through college knows that you just don't go out there and start making a bunch of money. And the amount of money you have to pay back is
Yeah.
so excruciating. It's like, yeah, you're making a bunch of money, but you have to pay back so much. So it's like you're really not making a whole bunch of money like
You
everybody
feel like
thinks,
you're
right?
treading water, except when the
Right, you're
blessing of
treading
Elohim
water.
is on
But
you.
as our sister said, she said that, part of a wife's duty is to prosper her household. So we're
Come
called to
on.
help our husbands to prosper. Prosper the household in
Yes.
whichever way it is. If you're whatever calling your husband's doing, if your husband like Tim, take Tim for example. Tim is a builder. So his wife should be somebody that's able to call, make appointments, schedule
Or at
things,
least
help him with his
not be
business.
contrary. At least she's on
Not be
board with the
at
building
least
vision.
not be
Yeah.
contrary, going, oh, I'm
Yeah.
going to go start my own business, my own company, and I'm going to build my own houses. And you start to become competitive instead of
Yeah, they
one
start
and doing
competing
things
with each
together.
other, which is disastrous. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And you start off where you start off, we had to restart. Mindy will tell you we had to restart a couple times, and that was
A few
okay,
times.
because we saw that Elohim is faithful. There were times when she really was questioning if my decision making. I was even
Yes.
questioning my decision making.
I can't lie, I was. There was
But
times.
you know what?
Yes.
I have an ace in my back pocket that she found out about, and that's that my father causes me to land on my feet. And I don't even know how that happens, but I do. And so he causes me to land
I've
on my
watched
feet.
it.
And she watched so many times
I
when he
don't.
would show up for me, and she would
You
be
have
like,
no idea. I'd be
okay.
like,
She would be like,
no.
I see the favor of Elohim is on you. That otherwise I wouldn't know what to think about this.
Yes. And each time it built my faith that he was following Yahweh, that because I would see things that I would look at things in the flesh and go, oh my gosh, this looks like it's going to be a disaster. Right. But Yahuwah never dropped us. He always, and I'm like, okay. So, and I started to learn and realize that my husband is following the Ruach HaKodesh, so I can start trusting my husband. Just like I remember before I got married, and when I was, I was fasting and praying for my husband, even though I had such a strong desire to be married, there was a time I remember I was just weeping before Yahuwah because I knew that there was going to be a time when I wasn't going to have this time with Yahuwah, because it says, in Acts, it talks about, I believe it's Acts, where it talks about that when you get married, you're of the business of your spouse. You're not, and not, it's the single people are about Yahuwah, and then when you're married, you're going to be about your husband and your children. You're not going to have the time that you used to have when you were single. And so I wept, and I'm like, I just couldn't ever imagine that anybody was going to love me like Yahuwah loved me. And I'm like, how in the world could a man love me like you love me? And I couldn't imagine feeling that love. And I remember after we got married that Yahuwah answered that prayer for me. There was a couple times where it was like Peter would say, like, I remember there's one time he said, I love you. And it was as if Yahuwah himself was saying it to me. And Yahuwah used that at that time. And he's like, I will love you through your husband. I am still loving you through him. I haven't gone anywhere. Our relationship is still just as secure and just as tight. You still have that relationship, but now you can see my love in a different way. And I did. And, Peter is such a great example of such a patient man. He has been extremely patient. He has been extremely kind, but yet firm at the same time. So he's not a pushover. Anybody that knows him, he's not a pushover. I put on my dukes, not physically, but I put on my dukes before, and we've had some intense fellowship. And there's times where you've had to say, I thought I was right. No, and I was going to hold my ground, because I was right. And Yahuwah had to come over after Peter would stand his ground, and Yahuwah would come and correct me and say, no, Mindy, you need to listen to your husband. He's pruning you. He's getting some of those harsh edges off of you. But you know what? I know that I'm still precious to Yahuwah, and I'm precious to my husband. You know, my husband sees who I am in Yahuwah, and he protects me and he provides me. I don't have to worry about being hurt. There's been so many times where I've sat there and I've realized and thought about like other family members when they were my age, what kind of life they had. And I would think back at the life I had before I found
Well, that's
Yahusha
good.
and before I got
Mhm.
married. And I was just like, I'm just so grateful that I don't have to worry about being hurt, you know, that I feel completely safe. One of the biggest things that meant the most to me is that when I can call, I sit there and I think about, I'm going home where my safe place is.
Mm.
This is the first relationship I ever had in my life, and it was the one that Yahuwah put me in, where I finally know that I'm safe and that person doesn't want to harm me and doesn't want to hurt me. He wants to help me and he wants to protect me, and he's not going to let anybody hurt me. If he has anything to do with it, he won't. And I know that there's so many of you out there that have been traumatized and have been hurt by other people, men and women. It's not just the women. I know that you men out there, you've been hurt too, and that you've had women betray you. And just know that Yahuwah can put you with somebody else. He can put you with somebody that won't harm you, that will protect you, and that will heal those places in your life. Sorry, now I'm getting all emotional.
Quit chopping onions, Mindy.
I know, right? Rachel, where's my wet paper towel so I don't cry with the onions?
Well, you know, this world is so jacked up, and
Yeah.
I feel so bad for the young ones coming up today in many ways,
Yeah.
and in other ways I'm grateful for the awakening that they're getting. So those who have parents, well, even those that don't have parents that are awake, they may be still awake. So it's, you know, it's an amazing time. But at the same time, we do have a sadness because you guys are the post Sodom and Gomorrah generation. Like, you're seeing the results of what Sodom and Gomorrah did and what they brought, and how it literally disintegrated so much of our society. There are those still defending that, and they are on the other side. And you know what? They equally have the right to share their thinking, but you have the right to review the results. And as you do, what you're seeing is more and more people are going, you know, and they're agreeing with Elohim. We saw the whole state of Louisiana pass the law that the schools all have to display the commandments. What is that? What is going on here? Right? What is happening here? Why
Here
would
in
a
New
whole
Kingdom
state?
Academy, we're all Torah based. Just saying, anybody needs a
Right.
school.
And you can enroll remotely, by the way, just so you guys know that. And so the reality is that you're seeing so many people now coming to realize that we bought lies, we bought falsehood, we got
Yes.
talked into sitcom versions of marriage, and these
Yes. Oh my
sitcom
gosh.
pictures of marriage were horrible examples. Mindy and I, we were before we
We're
moved out
both
here,
thinking of the same thing. I know.
we were living in Buckeye. You guys remember that? We were living in Buckeye. We're broadcasting
Oh
from
my
there till we came
goodness.
out here. And each evening we would eat dinner together, and we would try to find just something to watch, just to sit together and, you know, just enjoy a little quiet time together. And so we tried a couple of sitcoms, you know, thinking, you know, it wouldn't be too bad. Wow.
Right. Some innocent sitcoms like they had back in the 80s, 70s and 80s, you know, you're thinking similar things. Oh my goodness. I think I'm the one that pointed it out. I said because I started noticing that the women were like demasculating the men, and I'm like, I
Yes.
don't find that funny. I
Yes.
don't find
Yeah. A
that these
lot of the
women
jokes, a
insulting
lot of
their
the
husband, that's
jokes
funny.
were at the expense. One of the shows that we watched was
Yeah.
Everybody Loves Raymond, which is
It
just
was Everybody Loves Raymond, and we were like,
horrifically,
whoa.
was it demasculating or emasculating? Anyway, you get the point. And so this is one of those examples. There were others, but that was one of them that, you know,
That
we're
was
just
one
like,
of the big
whoa,
ones. Yeah.
I never noticed how bad this was. And we were just listening to
Yeah.
the dialogue with more intense, you know, with more attentiveness. We weren't just letting things go anymore.
Yeah.
We and how many of you have ever started going, I used to like this movie, or I used to watch this
You
show,
start to change, yeah.
and you've changed. And so then you come back with a clearer understanding, and you watch something you used to never think nothing of. And you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, how did I ever let that get by me?
Yeah, I know. I know. And like Octavia said, her dad saw the same thing. It's like we're all seeing that. But like you were
Yes.
talking about how the shows back in the 80s, how they were more wholesome, but they were already putting things inside there, like the Brady Bunch.
No, by the 80s,
the
they were
division
already
of
doing,
family.
they were by the late 70s. That's when we had Three's Company. So they brought
Oh,
in
I
that
forgot about
element.
Three's Company.
Yeah, they brought in that element.
Of
They started
course, but they don't
to.
actually say it. They just kind of like,
So it was a slow creep for sure.
yes.
And if you on our, this is a side note, but on my Facebook, I had a video that I put up, which was a clip from the movie Insidious, and this demon is telling you, literally telling you, because they have to tell you these things. So it's telling you how possession happens, and how that they progressively get yeses, they progressively get you to agree. So you slowly come under the control of it. It's not all at one time. It's not a one-shot thing. A lot of people think it is, and so they suddenly go, oh my goodness, you realize it down the road, but you don't know how many times you've agreed with a demon, whether it was on a show, a radio broadcast, a TV broadcast, an internet thing. You are nodding and agreeing with a demon who sounded logical, like their information sounded good. We don't even know that we're agreeing with them. And this is the kind of stuff. This is why we need one another. Like we were reading yesterday in the scripture reading, how that the husband, this is something he had to teach me, has the power to cancel the words of his wife. So sometimes a woman will get herself a little in trouble. We all do it
sometimes, ladies. We can admit it.
Absolutely.
There is.
We do it.
Yes.
Men do too. But it there's a reason why I gave that power to men, because we tend to be a little more logical. Not always, because sometimes we're just as worse than
right
11-year-old girl. Let's just be honest. Sometimes we are, but
when you
the hope is
that's when you guys are like little boys.
That will be more. So we have to cancel things that we go, whoa, that's dangerous. You didn't even think of this, or what did you just agree to, or where are the condiments? No, just kidding. So
I've struggled with bringing condiments for him, you guys. That's why he jokes about that. Ever since we first got together, I always forget the condiments. I don't know what the deal is. I have an issue with
no ketchup, or go to get tacos or something. Come back with no taco sauce.
No taco sauce.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
It's like it's so, I don't know what goes on with my brain, but I'm starving.
I'm starving, and there's no condiments. What are you kidding? And she'd be like, "I'm sorry." And she's so cute, so you can't get mad.
So stupid afterwards, because I'm like, how can I forget that again? It's been we've been
so adorbs. So you just have to forget it. Never mind. I have a whole pantry full of Taco Bell sauce just for that reason.
That's right. That's how I negate it now. I literally have like a little store.
We have every kind of condiment that you could think of.
Whatever but there's always a times that something runs out though. That's what it's like. Come on. Like today, I made this great lunch. And then where's the hot juice sauce?
Juice. Where's my Hey, where's Josie? That's my juice.
How that happened? I don't know. He was real gracious though. I'm like, I promise I'll buy a whole bunch.
It was a really good sandwich without it, so she knocked.
Well, it would have been really good.
She was going for bonus. She was going for bonus points, guys.
I like the extra credit. Come on.
She was going for the extra. She was getting the cherry on top.
Do unto you as I'm doing to Yahoo, right? Like I'm doing it for Yahoo.
Fun. You see, when a man finds a wife, he doesn't find a girlfriend.
That's right.
He doesn't find just somebody that's going to take time with him. He finds the person that is connected to his purpose.
Yes.
And when I met Mindy, I was recovering. And I needed to get back to what I was called to do. And it was a hard road. It was not easy to recover my footing. And when you've been hurt in the house of your friends, as the scripture says, No one would hurt you more than churchianity. Churchianity eats its wounded. Just saying, very cannibalistic.
Yeah.
And
Especially the
so,
leaders.
this is
It's
what's
like
different
very,
about the remnant. The
yeah,
remnant is where you're finding anointing for recovery, where I found, of course, the authentic compassion and the tremendous love of Elohim. So the real thing is the real thing, folks. It just produces different results,
yeah,
and that is what we discovered. But up until that point, I hadn't seen that, right? It was all theory. So up until I experienced it with Mindy, it was a theory. And I'll never forget that we were sitting down at a table and we had just finally, we had talked and prayed and spent so much time in the spirit together. And now we're finally physically together, and Elohim had done it a certain way to preserve the sanctity of our union, and it was very beautiful. And I remember her giving me a cell phone. I think I still have it in a box somewhere, but
I'm sure you do.
I'm not even kidding. I
Maybe.
think I still have that original cell phone that you gave me. But she gave me
How
a
in
cell
the world?
phone, and our entire marriage, like from day one to this day, I know Mindy's passwords. Mindy knows
Of
mine.
course.
We both have access to each other's devices. I have never, in all the years that we've been together, felt in the least bit the need to go look
Me neither.
or investigate to see if there was anything inappropriate. Like,
Yep.
it's amazing to have that kind of relationship where
Yes.
you don't have the least bit of an inkling. And I had never experienced that. Like, I
Right.
had come out of several relationships where you were stupid not to look, and you were
Yeah.
being basically punked for
Yep.
not looking. And so then you look and you're like, oh my goodness. And so, having come out of that, right, fake, false,
Yep.
lying signs and wonders
Fake love.
relationships, right, and then you get the real thing and you're like, you don't even know how to process it. You don't even know, like, how
Right.
to even relate to it. It's like
Yeah.
that one meme where they show a gal and a guy is so healthy. He says, yeah, check my phone for me. And she goes, you want me to check your phone? And he's like, yeah, see who it is. And she's like, you want me to look into your phone? Gives her the password. And it's like this big deal. It's this viral video. And I'm like, that's just our normal life.
Yeah,
That's just,
but it wasn't before we got together. Like, we both had to deal with people that were cheaters,
yes,
abusive
yes,
people. So there was a lot of healing. Like Peter said, we healed each other because we realized when we got together, oh, we don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about this man beating me. I don't have to worry about this man getting in trouble and going to prison and leaving me. I don't have to worry about this man manipulating me, or I don't
right,
have to be the one to go out and make all the money and support us. He's going to support me. He's going to protect me. He's not going to hurt me. He's for me. He's not against me. And that's what Peter felt as well. He finally, and like, you don't realize that there's been moments where both of us has kind of been like, well, that's the way it's supposed to be, because we're Yahua finally put, like, so many times people will get with people, like one person will love the other person more, and they're like, there's one person that's really doing everything in the relationship, and then there's other person, like you said, that you can't trust them. They're doing that. That's the way it's supposed to be. Yahua, if you wait for who Yahua has for you, he'll
you
put the
won't be
two people
unequally yoked.
together that
Yeah,
are
you won't be unequally yoked.
yeah,
That's
you
the
won't be
secret.
equally yoked. You guys will both
Right.
be caring about each other, caring about the number one, the mission of Yahua that Yahua has you guys on.
Right.
And it'll heal you naturally as you continue to walk and as you continue to learn that you can trust not only Yahua, but you can trust the person that Yahua gave you to. That's important, and it heals you each time that you see that. Each time that I would like, if I would upset Peter and he didn't beat me up, I got healed. Each time that I went out to the store and I wasn't cheating on Peter, he got healed a little bit more. And throughout the years, it was like we just started to realize we can trust that other person.
And by the way, that's normal. Like, that's
Yeah.
normal. That's
and
what's
that's
supposed to be the
yes,
case.
that's the normal way
Like,
relationships
it's not supposed to be such a big deal. I mean, we make a big deal out, but it's not supposed to be,
It's not
because you
supposed to be,
shouldn't need
no.
to worry about what your spouse is
Right,
doing.
it
But
shouldn't even be a
unfortunately,
thought.
right, in this society, it is a big deal, because you're going,
Yeah.
wow, you guys have that kind of relationship. Yeah. Like,
Right.
she looks through all my stuff, and I have no problem. I've looked at it all. I sometimes have gone into her Facebook and say, honey, you misspelled this meme. Let me fix this for you.
And I don't
Log
mind. I'm like,
in,
thank you for
fix
fixing
it,
it.
and then log back out, right?
Whatever. He
What
could
do I
read every single one of my
and she's
messages. I'm not
watching.
concerned.
She tells me about everything. She tells
Yes,
me everything. If you
if
text my
there's
wife thinking you're going to get in on the schmooze, we're going to be
not
both
gonna
laughing
happen.
at you in
We
20
laugh
minutes.
about it.
She's going
Behind
to be
closed,
going, look
we
at
laugh
this
about
dude.
it.
Look at this dude
Look at
sending
this
me a
dude
friend
trying
request,
trying
right?
to roll up in.
Trying
Yeah, I
to
don't think
roll
so.
up in here, rolling
Yeah,
up in, right?
right?
We laugh about it, because to us, it's like, it is that precious, right?
Yes.
But don't get it twisted. Any minute now, somebody be happy to bring some wind and rain. They'll be happy to mess up your happy, beautiful life.
Yes, they will.
They will be happy to bring their drama into your peace, into your shalom. And this is where we need to be wise about our boundaries. And one thing that our sisters do, this is why I love my sisters. I love my brothers, but I really appreciate my sisters' sense of security. And because I'm surrounded by very high integrity and no joke sisters, they're letting me know about things before it gets to me, right? Because
absolutely,
they got your back. They care about you. And when you have a family of brothers and sisters, you have strength in the numbers of your brethren, and you have discernment and wisdom with your sisters. You're a hard person to get to. You're getting tougher to deal with. All right. So each layer of that, whether it's starting in the family unit, of course, and then from there, what if Mindy and I don't get together and that family unit doesn't start? Then all of that came after that doesn't happen. Josiah is not here. That whole testimony, everything that's happened as a result doesn't occur. So how critical was our union? This is why Elohim was excited about us being together, because of what it meant.
Yes.
Because of what would then come as a result. The impact is not just you two, the two people. It's what you will do when together. The two set 10,000 to flight.
Yep, we were just talking about this. Yes.
Sometimes Mindy's job was just hold the camera. Sometimes Mindy's job was just be the co-pilot. And
sometimes it was just wind, to pray.
Be the wind beneath my wings. Like, you didn't even see her, but you saw me, right? And you didn't know that she was there the whole time, making sure that everything got done, that reservations got done, that things got moved from one place to the next. You think that's easy? You try it. Okay? You do it for 1 week, you'll be like, whoo, have mercy.
I feel like I got little legs around here sometimes. Slow down, I got little legs. I'm trying to keep up. That's what I told Octavia. I'm like, goodness, I'm gonna have to get bigger legs keeping up with you.
Yeah, and then you get high integrity friends like Tony and Octavia.
Yes. Which iron sharpens
like that,
iron.
Alan and Sharon.
Yes.
Right? You get these high integrity friends. We're surrounded by them. I could name a few more. I could name quite a few. Ryan and Regina. Right?
Yep.
People that they love you, but they ain't playing.
Yeah, right. They
love
help
you.
Each other become better.
Right. Okay, they love you to pieces, but they ain't gonna lie for you. They're not going.
Thank you.
They're gonna tell you the truth.
Thank you for not lying for anyone.
Exactly. And when you have high integrity friends and you have a cocoon, an environment of high accountability, at first you'll bristle at it because you'll be like, man, I can't get away with nothing. Man, right?
Yeah.
But you know
right.
what? Think about this is the season of the Olympics. So you're seeing these preliminary events, and these coaches have to bring these athletes to successfully compete in the Olympics. They time everything. There are no extra races. There's no, I didn't feel like it today. Okay.
No, you got to do it whether you like it or not.
You got to bring your A game.
No excuses.
No excuses. You got to bring your A game. That is the remnant right now. The remnant are like that. They are Olympic performers that are having to do Olympic level, like supernatural things. They gotta be courageous. They gotta go where people don't want to go, right? They gotta be willing to do assignments. Elohim has to send them on assignments nobody else wanted to do, all right, or no one had the courage to do.
Right.
So of course he's got to build strength, and he needs that building block of the family.
Yes.
Okay. Could he have sent Peter by myself? Could he have done that? Sure, he could have. He could have said, I'm going to strengthen you like Apostle Paul, and you're going to run your race like that. He didn't. He said, I'm going to send you help.
Yep.
I'm going to send you help. Okay. And he kept his word concerning Josiah. He sent me my son, and he kept his word about recovering my heart. He healed me. When you've been betrayed, any of you've been betrayed, you need a loyal person, a faithful person, like Mindy said. Every time she would go to the store and come back, and the world didn't blow up, like every time, you healing that person, you're recovering their trust. You're recovering what enemy stole. So, he says he gives back what the locusts have eaten. And so this is what he was doing. He's restoring what the locusts have eaten.
Healing it. Yes. Amen.
Years of it, years of abuse, years of betrayal, years of treachery, lies, deceit, where you had no idea where that person was, and you're going through this horrible feelings in your heart, okay, and these terrible lonelinesses and all that. I don't have that anymore. I don't know what that feels like. I forgot what that felt like. I have to be reminded.
Yep.
And I go, oh gosh, I remember what that feels like. Oh, and then when you remember, you're like, I don't want to ever go back there again.
I'm not going to go like this anytime my husband puts his hand up. I don't do that, because he's never right. So, you see, like,
if I would lift my hand, my wife will give me a high five. She'd be like,
I'd be like, hey, baby. What are we high fiving for? Woohoo! Praise you.
That's true, though. Some people would flinch, right? So you're like, whoa. And they're like, oh, man, you were traumatized. Somebody beat you up, right? That's not cool.
Right, right. I'll give you a high five too, Scott.
Instead, we're giving high fives. I'll high five your face. Come here.
Oh, that's funny. No, that's your spouse does heal you, and it goes, we heal each other.
Yeah.
And hopefully you don't have to go through that. So that is our goal for the young ones, is to teach them and to tell them what not to do.
Save
so
the trouble. Many monsters out there. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like we're so grateful, like with Chase and Josie, they waited for each other. They have a little bit of trauma, just a little bit, because of maybe a few mistakes that may have been made, but they don't have like a lot of the stuff that we've gone through. They can get together. They're pure still, they're holy, and they can come together as one. And it can be a beautiful thing. They don't have all these extra traumas.
And there are other examples. We're seeing other young people. Some of you are raising that next generation, and you're preserving them, and that's beautiful. And we need to start planting now, early in their young lives, the love of marriage, the love of being united, the love of being in a committed relationship. You can't wait until they fall in love to say, oh, well, let me teach you about marriage. And it's like, no, we need to talk about that early and often. We need to, there was a time period and again, in American history, even, there were a thing called finishing schools, and young ladies would go to what was called the finishing school. And again, you might not agree with that. You might have done it differently, but I think it's an interesting study of it's anthropologically very interesting, because it cultivated an atmosphere where women were thinking about and preparing for being a wife and being a mother professionally. Like, that is their job, and they were good at it, and they were focused on it. And it wasn't a huge time period in American history, but it was there, and it definitely had its impact. And so I do believe that there were portions of that, maybe not completely, and maybe there are definitely things that were not perfect back then, that anybody of color can certainly tell you. But the point is that moving in the direction where you're going to encourage that, the wholesomeness of family, the kadosh institution of marriage that Elohim established in the garden, that is something that, when done correctly, becomes the recharge station, the recovery station, the place where both the husband and the wife have their reconnection, have their ability to recover, to face the world together. And if we do it correctly, that becomes a dynamic team that, coupled with other dynamic teams, change the world.
Yes.
And don't think for a second that, because that's who's ruling the world. The people ruling the world are people intensely committed to their families, intensely committed to their wealth, and intensely committed to their religion and to their belief set. And they're willing to do whatever they have to do. That's who rules the world. So understand that, you know, they understand that better than the children of the kingdom. Yes. And we need to recover that. We need to recover the strength of our families so that we have a hub from which we can continue to advance the kingdom in the earth, right? So what good is it to preach the good news if there's no place where people can experience and live that out?
Make a good
That's
point.
what community gives you the opportunity to do.
Yes.
Because you might have got saved, but now you need to see what that looks like.
The refining.
Now you need to see what it looks like for a man to take responsibility for his household. So you need a few examples. You might need a few women to show you what it's like for, you know, where are the pitfalls and where's the upsides. We need that. We've got horrible examples out there. Women that are scantily clad, wearing clothing that is very revealing, disrespecting their husbands on the daily by just the way they dress. We got terrible examples out there being put before.
Parents dressing their little ones intentionally like that too, and thinking that it's acceptable.
So this is where the remnant has its opportunity, because you're basically showcasing the kingdom, right? So you're letting your light shine before men, that they would see your relationship, see your marriage, see your, by contrast, and go, man, I like that better. Like, what you guys have is way different than what I saw and what I grew up with in churchianity, with heavy-handed religious households, with heavy-handed carnal households. Whatever direction they went, if it wasn't led of the Ruach, it doesn't have that beauty in it. It doesn't have that delicate beauty. It has something else. And so we need those examples. At least I know that I do.
Amen.
What do you want to share before we let them go, honey? What do you want to tell the young ladies out there?
I'm sure that there is a lot more than I could say. My greatest advice for all of you ladies is write your vision clearly upon the tablet. You know, so that when you read it, you run with it, water it with the word of Yahweh, fast and pray for, you know, who Yahweh has you with and what direction he desires for you to go. You know, I mean, if he puts it together, then it's for a purpose and a reason. So
that's right.
There's no point in wasting our time with people that aren't going to fulfill the calling that Yahweh has in our life. If we really desire, and like majority of women, that's what I hear is, I just want Yahuwah's will. I want Yahuwah's will. Well, how can we fulfill Yahuwah's will if we don't have our partner to do that with? You know, I mean, unless his will is for us to be by ourselves, but you don't really see that in scripture really, you know, with women being by themselves, you know, women aren't.
We have a couple. We have a couple of women, and actually have some sisters. I have a couple of sisters, not many, but that are not married.
Yes.
But it's interesting that they are highly devoted to the mission of this ministry. And are under that in that sense, they're in covenant and in cover, right?
Right.
So they have not the secondary external, and if Elohim were to open that door, then they would. But in the interim, they've come into that family that way, which is a beautiful picture.
Right.
It's another father to the fatherless picture, by the way.
Yes, I
Sometimes
agree.
we only think of little children, but there's another version of that in that regard, because again, if they were, some of these young ladies, if they were to get married, don't even have a father, and so someone would have to have that authority to give them away. I mean, there's so much of that that we don't really understand. That transference of authority is big. It's huge. Okay,
Yeah, and
huge.
I hear this, and I hear this a lot. What our sister said in the chat, there's not very many good men out there. I hear the exact same thing from the good men of Yahuwah. There's not very many good women of Yahuwah out there. You guys just haven't gotten together yet. I mean, I see good men in Yahuwah, and I see good women in Yahuwah that have been single for quite some time, and I keep on hearing everybody saying there's none of the opposite. But I see you guys. You guys just haven't gotten
Yeah,
together yet. So
you just got
Yahuwah
to see
needs,
each other. And you know what? And he'll do it in his time. I do
he's
believe
doing
that
it in his time
timing
and
is a
who
big
he
deal.
desires. Yes, yes.
It was at the appointed time that I met Mindy. It was not, I couldn't accelerate it. I tried to
Yeah, me
accelerate
too.
that time. I tried to speed it up, and that was disastrous. That did not work.
Yeah.
So in the end, I ended up going, okay, I'm done, and I'm ready to go alone. And I had to come to the end of, I had to exhaust myself, right? I had to
Right.
exhaust my own carnal, natural energy and all methods that I could think of.
I did
And when
too.
I got to
Yeah.
that place,
Yep.
that's when he was able to say, now that you're here, I'm taking over. Now I'm going to bring you a help me, right? And so
Yes.
he brought her into
Yes.
my life, and I've never looked back since. So
Yeah, and the crazy thing is the same time that Peter did that, I did the same. I was doing the exact same thing. It was about a week before Yahuwah brought us together, and I went to this service, and I was just crying out to Yahuwah, and I'm like, I don't know how. I'm giving myself a review. Really desire for me to walk out and minister without my husband. Okay, I don't see how I'm supposed to do that by myself. But if that's what you desire for me, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And then I found out after Peter and I met that it was the same night that he said the same thing. Yahuwah brought us together a week later. So I mean,
so supernatural connections
yes,
is common. This
yep,
is the way that our kingdom works. So those that are using carnal methods and trying to clean up that, doing the ham run as we call it, um,
no need to
you
do the ham run.
don't do the ham run.
They'll come. The women will come to you.
You know that
That's what
movie
we've been
Noah,
telling the
where
guys out here.
Ham tries to get a wife and he runs and he goes out to get her and he tries to bring her back to the boat and it doesn't work. We call
It
it the
doesn't
ham
work.
run.
She has to come
Doesn't work.
willingly.
And we've seen Elohim
Yes.
bring the right person, right? And
Yes.
he's looking for needles in a haystack. How
Yep.
many of you know you need a needle in a haystack? Yes, you do. You need a
Yes.
absolute, when you meet that person, you're like, man, he had to make just one for me because you are the
Yep.
only one like this I've ever met. Like,
Yep.
that's the way you should be.
Yep.
And and fall back in love with one another, So, well, thank you, love. I'm grateful that we had this time,
Well,
that you
thanks
got
for
a chance
having
to
me.
bump my brother Jarrell. See, he's like, oh, she can take this one. This is gonna be
Thank
her
you, Daryl, for letting
her
me take
corner.
your spot tonight. I know we all love seeing your wonderful face. We love
We
watching
do.
you,
We love Gerald.
the two old guys, two hoary
That's right.
heads.
He's amazing. Well, thank you again, love. I appreciate it, and I'll see you for dinner.
I will see you in a bit for dinner. You can count on me.
And folks, I just am so thankful for every one of you who joined us this evening. And we do encourage all of you in Yahusha or Mashiach that do not give up hope. Some of you who have been single maybe a while, maybe you're someone that he's worked on and gotten ready. And if it is your desire to find that relationship, I do believe Elohim will pair you up. But I want to encourage you to be content in whatever state you find yourself. Let him find you a content vessel. Let him find you one who is faithful with what you've been assigned to do in that moment. That is our encouragement to you. And let me encourage all of you who are married, remember the wonderful thing that was given to you. For after all, whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor from Yahweh. Well, that's tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. May Elohim bless each and every one of you. And remember, Yahusha HaMashiach, he alone is King of Kings. Amen.